welcome to Broken Entertainment. So, people have been talking about Black Widow a lot, and on both sides. On the one side, the media is telling you it's the greatest success since the invention of success, and the best movie since the invention of movies, and it's going to single-handedly save the theater industry, even though it's continuing to decline. And it's made good money so far. Now, whether this movie can ever actually make any money, given how long it was delayed, expensive costs in promoting it for a year, uh, you know, potential investment costs and stuff that went up because of all the delays, who knows? We'll probably never know. As far as the movie goes, I haven't seen it yet, so I'm going to withhold full judgment on the movie until I see it. So I'm looking into this, and today everybody's talking, and yesterday everybody's talking about how much money this movie brought in. Okay, and then I'm looking at Cosmic Book News, and I see Black Widow underperforms at the box office with this huge drop. I'm like, what? What are you talking about? They brought in $158 million over the last, counting the foreign box office, over the last over the weekend, essentially. Now, I'm like, well, how could it have a huge drop? What are you talking about? How underperforming? So, I went into this article. I'm not going to go into this article itself. It's kind of your typical Cosmic Book News article. But Black Widow is a very divisive movie already. What you're seeing is the media tout it as this great reckoning of feminist ideology and Me Too movement era stuff, and then you're seeing reviewers talking about that's not really in it that much, and you're seeing it bring in this money, but apparently it has a huge drop, and it's kind of a mixed bag in that sense. And I said in my video on this movie previously that, hey, Kevin Feige's talking about, oh, we're gonna subvert your expectations on these characters, and I'm like, God, can we just not? And I still stand by that. And we have heard what the subverted expectation is. It's not what I thought it was going to be, but it is something that I'm not going to reveal here because the spoiler. A lot of people haven't seen the movie yet, so I won't go into it. But it does exist, and it is eye roll inducing. But this movie has brought in $158 million, and I don't think that can be ignored. And I've seen a lot of people saying, oh, well, if you take out the Disney Plus numbers, and if you don't look at, well, if you release the movie in a normal environment, you would not have the Disney Plus numbers on Disney Plus. They'd just be in the theater. Those are still people that paid $30 to watch the movie. Most of them probably would have gone to the theater under normal circumstances, would be my guess. Unless they have a really big family and they don't want to pay all that money. Totally understandable. So for me, it's hard to say, oh, well, if you take out the numbers from this and the numbers from that, then it's really only this. And you see a lot of attempts to sort of reinforce the position that the movie is a failure, even though $158 million. So to me, the interesting thing was seeing this article that it has a huge drop, because the opening box office is not the whole story of a movie's success, right? $158 million is good, but what are its legs? How long does it last? How long does it pull in a lot of money? Where is it going to be at the end as a result? That matters a great deal. Because you can have a lot of hype for a movie, which I think this movie did, but then people go see it and they tell word of mouth, and it's like, if people aren't excited about it, they don't want to go see it a second time, they don't tell their friends to go see it, etc., they can fall off a cliff. So I went to Deadline, and they talk about it initially in a thing talking about how AMC stocks continue to drop, and they say overall revenue for the North American box office totaled $117 million for the weekend, the highest since President's Day weekend in mid-February of 2020. Black Widow opened domestically at $80 million, but the gross dropped on Saturday from Thursday to Friday, way more than usual for a Marvel title, and the question is how much Disney Plus Premier Access was behind that erosion. I'm not sure I buy into that line, because why would Disney Plus Access lead to erosion of the box office if it didn't also erode it in the beginning? You know what I mean? I guess it might pull away some people that were kind of on the fence. I don't know. I'm not sure where they're getting that logic from. Black Widow Saturday saw a 41% drop from its near $40 million opening on Friday, which included Thursday previews. So they have a specific link to that, and let's get into that now. They kind of rehash a lot of this stuff, but here, this is on Deadline again. Other Disney Plus Premier Movies weekend premieres clocked previously by Samba TV include Mulan, 1.12 million over a 4-day Labor Day weekend, which didn't have a simultaneous theatrical release, and Cruella, 668,000. Wow, that's terrible. 4-day, which did have a day-and-date theatrical release. Samba clocked 2.4 million over Christmas weekend for Pixar's Soul, but that was also available for free to Disney Plus subscribers, and Samba did not monitor the viewership for the opening weekend of Disney Plus's premiere, Raya and the Last Dragon, which also hit movie theaters day and date. There's no question that Disney Plus premiere availability of the Black Widow ate into its domestic opening box office weekend. Yeah, maybe, probably. Black Widow Saturday saw a huge 41% drop from its near $40 million opening Friday. It's unusual for an MCU movie to be so front-loaded. Yeah, they usually have really long legs. With recent MCU origin movies easing Friday to Saturday between 4% to 14%. The notion is that fanboys showed up first on Thursday and Friday, and the regular Saturday moviegoers stayed home. The fear by many in the industry is Disney will continue this distribution model for other tentpoles. The Disney Plus premiere theatrical day-and-date release is planned for Dwayne Johnson's July 30th title, Jungle Cruise. If Disney kept Black Widow with a theatrical window and the film cleared an opening of $113 million, then they take home an approximate domestic theatrical rental of $67.8 million. With this dynamic model here, Disney is clearing roughly a $48 million theatrical rental off of an $80 million box office and keeping every penny of that $33 million. Premiere money, which means $81 million back to studio coffers. That kind of gets into the weeds there. 41% drop is really huge. And I think it's hard to put this argument down and say, oh, Black Widow is doing fine, it's just because of Disney Plus. Because we had Fast and Furious 9 available for free on HBO Max, Godzilla vs. Kong available for free on HBO Max. At the same time, they released in theaters, and they did very, very well in theaters. Godzilla vs. Kong in particular had a pretty long legs. It's like when they talk about this, they're like, well, no other streaming service does this. Well, they do. HBO Max does, and they have from almost the beginning of this whole mess. So, where does that really leave you? I don't think you can explain a 41% drop purely with Disney Plus. I do not buy into that. That is a massive, massive drop. And when you don't see that likely... Here, let me see. Alright, here we go. Godzilla vs. Kong remains on top of the box office, so this is from, back then, in its second weekend. After setting a pandemic box office record last week, the film earned another $13.3 million this week, bringing its box office total up to $69.5 million. And you can't deny, okay, Black Widow did a lot better than that in its initial release. Of course, it wasn't available for free on HBO Max. So for Godzilla vs Kong, now this is a week-to-week drop. This is the second weekend's drop compared to the first weekend, so it's going to be a little more severe versus a drop from Friday to Saturday. But a 41% drop in one day is pretty terrifying, no matter who you are. But here it says uh, long-term outlook for the MonsterVerse film looks somewhat unclear when Friday grosses dropped 67% to just under 4 million, but the Saturday rebound, Godzilla vs. Kong is now looking like it's following the typical pattern of a Hollywood blockbuster with a 58% weekend-to-weekend drop, even if the overall numbers are diminished. So that's important. The weekend-to-weekend drop for normal Hollywood blockbuster is 58%. Black Widow's already hit the majority of that number from Friday to Saturday. And they're saying, well, this is because of Disney Plus. I don't buy that. How do you explain how Godzilla vs. Kong more or less followed the typical pattern while it was also available for free on HBO Max? It just doesn't add up. Now, we don't have enough numbers to really say yet, where this movie's going to land. Is it going to land as a really favorite, memorable Marvel movie? Or is it just going to be a Marvel movie? We don't know. And I think there's been a push on both sides. We got one side saying it's the greatest movie in the history of great movies, and Marvel is the deity of filmmaking, and they're single-handedly going to save the theaters with Black Widow, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Then you got the other side saying get woke, go broke, and Disney's buying off tickets, and if you take this money out of here and that money out of there, this number looks different. To me, the really interesting thing is this 41% drop in one day. Where does that come from? And how is that going to be sustained over time? Is it going to drop another 41%? Probably not. Even if people really don't like the movie, it's not going to drop that steeply, that fast. So I think we're really going to know likely where this movie stands once we see the next weekend numbers. I'm very interested in seeing that because I don't think we know the truth. I think both sides are pushing too hard. And it makes it feel like, okay, this movie doesn't look that good. I'm not saying it looks terrible, but it doesn't look single-handedly save the industry good. Okay? The fact of the matter is, every new release in theaters has been getting higher numbers than previous releases because people are going back in higher numbers to the theaters. It just how it works. There's not a lot of competition. You've got Black Widow to go see, and what else? Not much. Some stuff that's been out for a while. So I think we're looking at a potential film that's going to land somewhere in the middle. I think what you're going to see is audiences kind of roll their eyes a little bit and say, oh, you did that. And, oh, look, there's only 2 men in the whole movie, and they're both idiots. What a coinky dink. So I think there's going to be some backlash in that form. But Scarlett Johansson draws a lot of male gaze, if you know what I mean. Despite what she said about desexualizing the character. And Black Widow is a popular Marvel character in the movies, anyway, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And Marvel still has a lot of good faith. The Marvel Cinematic Universe has had some duds. They've had some issue movies like Captain Marvel, but they have a lot of good faith, and people are really interested in being entertained. They see, hey, here's a Marvel movie. It's Black Widow. I remember Black Widow. She was really cool in the Avenger movies. And it's Scarlett Johansson. She's really nice to look at. I'm going to go watch it. But that only lasts for so long. So I think the strength of the movie, how good it really is in the audience eyes, we're going to find out next weekend. And I'll take another look at the numbers once we see those, because I'm really interested to see where that hits. A 41% drop can't be brushed off as Disney Plus. I'm sorry. Especially when you're looking at Godzilla's numbers right here that says weekend to weekend, initially it dropped 67%, but then it went back up and essentially followed the 58% weekend to weekend drop, typical of Hollywood blockbusters. We know that it ended up somewhere around the $60 million range, or $600 million range, sorry, total. So it did very well. If Black Widow's already hit 41%, where does it go? And I'll tell you now, the media is going to say, what they're already saying, this is Disney Plus. Well, come on. You can't. They look at these movies in a vacuum because they want access to Disney, they want access to Marvel, and if you're really nice to Marvel and Disney and you give them excuses and you fluff the numbers a little bit and you fluff your articles a little bit, then they give you a little bit more access, or you get to keep your access and everybody goes home happy. I don't think we've seen any solid evidence yet that Disney has been buying up tickets. There was that accusation with Captain Marvel as well. And there were a lot of pictures online of people in nearly empty theaters watching Captain Marvel. I don't think we're seeing the same thing here. I don't even think you can make the argument for that very well right now, because with conditions the way they are, some theaters are going to be fuller than other theaters, and it's just all over the place. But my guess, my hunch, based on this 41% drop, based on what this article says about Godzilla vs. Kong, and based kind of on what I've heard of the movie, keeping in mind I haven't seen it yet, I think this is going to end up being a middle-of-the-road Marvel movie that is overhyped by the media as being amazing and one of their best movies of all time, etc., etc. But I think at the end of the day, it's going to fall somewhere in the middle. I don't think it's the hard in the paint, hardcore, Me Too movement era movie that the media started to make it out to be a couple weeks before its release. I think that was a marketing gimmick. It's just cynical, but I think that's what they were doing. And everything I've heard is that it's pretty much a standard action flick with a little bit of undertones in there and some major character changes they made to a villain that hadn't been introduced yet. So while Kevin Feige was talking up a storm like, oh yeah, we're going to subvert your expectations on these characters, as it turns out, not really. But let me know what you think of this drop in the comments. If you've seen the movie, I'd love to hear from you. Let me know what you thought of it. Let everybody know in the comments what you thought of the movie. I think it's not a good sign for where Marvel movies are going in the future, but there's just not enough there yet to make that decision, and there's not enough there yet to decide where this movie is really going to land. And I don't want to judge this movie having not seen it, so I'll withhold my review until I'm able to see the movie. Let me know about your opinion on all this. If you liked the video, please hit the like button. If you're not subscribed, please consider subscribing. Hit the bell for notifications, and I will see you next time.